Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. I'm just going to give it one more minute. I can see the number of participants are still going up, so I'll just give everyone one more minute to get settled and then we will get started. Okay, I think we will get going there. So thank you all for joining us today. My name is Fiona and I work for the Mammal Society as Education and Training Officer. And I'm really excited about this webinar. We've got Steve joining us to talk about all things marine mammals. So this webinar is part of National Mammal Week. We're on day 3 of National Mammal Week today, and this is actually our 25th National Mammal Week and the 70th year of the Mammal Society. So just before I hand over to Steve, I've got a couple of housekeeping bits and a little bit to tell you about what we've got going on this week. So our theme for National Mammal Week this year is rediscovering the world of forgotten mammals. And we've got lots of different events happening all over the week. We've had some webinars already and we've got some more going on through the week. So do check out the Mammal Society website and have a look at what we've got going on. Everything that we're doing this week will be recorded, so you'll be able to catch up on it next week on YouTube as well. And if that's not enough and you want to get involved even more, we are encouraging people to get involved in Big Mammal Challenge. So this is about monitoring the mammals in your gardens or near to you and logging your sightings over on the Mammal Mapper app. So do check out Big Mammal Challenge as well. We've got a Facebook group where you can post your sightings and ask for help with ID and all of that. And we'd really like to know on social media how you're getting involved in National Mammal Week. And just before I hand over to Steve, I did want to plug a couple of marine things that we've got coming up. So this year, the Mammal Society will be up at Orca Watch for the final weekend. Myself and our ambassador, Billy Heaney, will be up there. And we're going to be running a youth event on the Saturday. We're also going to be running an evening of youth talks, so to bring some of the student researchers that are working in the kind of marine mammal field to bring them up and to show them what they're working on. So that will be hybrid, happening up at Orca Watch and happening online. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about marine mammal identification, we have got a training course coming up in June with Lauren Isles down on Gower, a 2-day course where you get to go out on a boat and do some land watches as well to help with your marine mammal ID. So that's all that there is to say from me. If you've got any questions for Steve as he's going through, do pop them in the Q&A box and I'll be monitoring that and we'll ask those at the end. And if you've got any other comments and reflections, do pop them in the chat. Let us know what you're joining from and all of that kind of thing. Brilliant. I'll hand straight over to Steve.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Let me just get my screen sharing. Right, hopefully that's all working okay. Excellent. Well, thanks very much to the Mammal Society for inviting me to talk. Yeah, and thanks everyone for coming. So yeah, I'm just going to give you a bit of a talk about whales, obviously trying to keep in with the theme of the National Mammal Week. So yeah, just give you a brief introduction about me first, so you know who's talking to you. Just a little word of warning, there is a bit of swearing. Being around whales is quite exciting. There are also pictures of dead whales, unfortunately. So yeah, if you're a bit squeamish or whatever, I apologise now. I'm just giving a general warning at the start of the talk. In particular, in the entanglement section, yeah, maybe you want to close your eyes if you're a bit squeamish. So yeah, a bit about who I am. I'm not an expert. I'm not a marine biologist. I'm just a very keen enthusiast. I'm lucky enough since 2017 to be working as a whale and dolphin watching guide over on the west coast of Scotland. And yeah, I soon became a skipper, and luckily for me, I've then been able to take that elsewhere. I'm currently working in Norway in the winter time. Yeah, and I love my killer whales. As just in case anyone doesn't know who I am, killer whales is my #1 thing. I'm currently up in Scotland, funnily enough, at Duncansby Head, where Fiona just mentioned, on the lookout for black and white sea pandas. So yeah, I was very lucky. I had loads of amazing experiences with whales, and that inspired me basically to change what I was doing. And this is, for example, one of those events. This was filmed over in Norway in 2019. The boat was sat still, and then this happened.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. Oh my god! Whoa! Holy shit! Fabian! Oh my god! Oh yes! I got it on video! I got it on video! I got it on video! Oh my god!
So as you can see, being around whales is pretty exciting. It never gets dull for me, and yeah, you could clearly see I was very happy that I got that on video. So everything changed for me in 2012. I moved up from England. I was an engineer. This is me on my first day in Scotland. I moved to a place called Hopeman. And on my very first day, I had a walk around the village, and a lady in the local shop told me I could see bottlenose dolphins from where I'd moved to. So I spent a couple of months looking and looking, and eventually was lucky enough to see Murray Firth bottlenose dolphins. And from there, I joined Whale and Dolphin Conservation's Shore Watch programme, started seeing larger mammals, minke whales mainly, and humpbacks, and then found out that you could see orcas. And it took me about 3 years to see my first orcas. Obviously not every single day I was looking, but I was going away all over Scotland looking for them, and made a hell of a lot of mistakes looking for them. Went to the right places at the wrong time, and the wrong places at the right time. But this is a picture of Hulk. He's an orca that comes over from Iceland every year. He was actually here a week ago, and he was the first killer whale that I saw in the wild. So yeah, seeing Hulk and the rest of the group really made me realize what an amazing experience it is to see these incredible animals, and also to show other people. And it inspired me to make a serious career change. And one thing and another led to me getting offered a job working for Hebridean Whale Cruises in the Minch on the west coast of Scotland. Yeah, since then I've been, well, every winter since 2017, I've been traveling over to Norway to see the largest aggregation of killer whales in the world. Pretty phenomenal. I now currently work for a company called Dervler Adventure. If you're interested in joining us, November to January, yeah, it's just an amazing experience. So yeah, going there every year, and not only the killer whales, but you get to see all the baleen whales that are there, in the main humpback whales. And I was lucky enough to get offered a job working for Norwegian Orca Survey, one of their winter field seasons. So I was 2021 on the research vessel. We were taking biopsies of the killer whales and getting all the ID photos to do the annual census. Absolutely incredible experience. So yeah, if you want to know any more about me, there is a film amazingly entitled My Surname, Truluck. It's available on YouTube for free. So yeah, have a look if you want to see a bit more. One thing I didn't mention, I'm also a Star Wars fan, and that'll that'll explain the next bit as I get on with the talk. So, bit of fun, but it is a serious subject. Being around whales is a bit of a roller coaster. I volunteer for SMAS, so that involves, it's the Scottish Marine Animal Stranding Scheme, and that involves collecting samples from dead animals and helping with necropsies. So, can be pretty grim. And obviously, when you're out whale watching, you see some amazing things, but as you'll see, you also see some pretty grim things, but that's the reality of being around whales. So in keeping with the theme of forgotten mammals, mentioning extinct animals, animals that are under-recorded, going to be talking a bit about the threats to the whales, obviously going to be talking about killer whales, and yeah, we'll see then a few things that you guys can do to help, and that I've been doing to help, and also my opinion on how I think whales are doing. So obviously I'm not going to be talking about every single threat. There's, for example, threats such as ship strike, which fortunately in Scottish waters don't seem to be too much of a problem. And I haven't witnessed anything to do with ship strike. So these are the threats that I want to talk about. We've only got an hour, so yeah, I can't talk about everything. But yeah, just going to talk about these threats that are on screen. So yeah, we'll start with whaling. So whaling obviously had a huge impact on whales all around the world. In Scotland, whaling started off up in the Arctic on the hunt for bowhead whales and bottlenose whales. So we've got a picture here of a bottlenose whale that I took in the Clyde near Glasgow a couple of years ago. Now these bottlenose whales, they're beaked whales. They dive deep, and when they come to the surface, they spend considerable amount of time on the surface. And they need to recover so they can then dive deep. And they were able, because of that, to be pursued by the whalers just in rowing boats. So they would sail out in these huge sailing ships, as shown on the left, take to a rowboat, go out to where these beaked whales were, and basically spear them and kill them, and then recover them for the oil and the meat. As things developed, a Norwegian, Sven Foynd, he developed the harpoon, the exploding harpoon, in the end of the 1800s. And that then meant, in conjunction with the invention of the steam engine, it meant that these huge, well, much larger catcher ships could be deployed for the whalers. And that then meant that the faster whales, such as the blue whales, the sei whales, and the fin whales, were then viable to be caught. And that really changed the face of industrial whaling. So here's two boats, catcher boats, that were used off of the Isle of Harris in Scotland, and a picture of a fin whale on the right. So yeah, most of the images and the tables that I'm using today in today's talk from this amazing book, well worth a read. It's obviously pretty sad, but it puts into perspective what's happened in our Scottish waters. You've possibly all heard of shifting baselines. What we see now is basically, you know, not what we would have seen 100 years ago. You know, there'd have been a lot more whales around. So I'm just going to show you a few tables of the records of whales that were killed at the Harris station. So here's an overall table. There were 3 stints at the Harris station. I'm probably completely mutilating the name, but I think it's Bunnabadir it's called. The thing to note here is in the first stint, they were pretty successful. This was run by Norwegians, experienced Norwegians. They'd been based in Iceland and relocated to Harris. And they took 1,800 whales in several years. They had a 6-year hiatus because of World War One. But notably, if you look in the column here, look at the species they were killing. Blue whales, fin whales were the predominant whale that they killed, and that remained the way throughout the operation of this station. Not that many humpback whales, but look at the amount of sei whales, 360 sei whales. Now, I've spent a lot of time on a boat off the west coast. I've never, ever seen a sei whale. And I'm quite sure that is in part because a lot of them were removed by this whaling. But the key disappointing thing when you look at these figures is North Atlantic right whales. So there were 2 populations of North Atlantic right whales in the Atlantic, east and west. There is still one in the west. It is critically endangered, struggling with entanglement and ship strike. They've been in the news recently with animals being lost, including a calf that was hit by a ship. Yeah, really terrible. But yeah, these Norwegians managed to find the final pocket of North Atlantic right whales from the east population just off of St Kilda. And unfortunately, even though they knew that this was the last surviving remnants of the population, they pursued them for the money. So here's a picture of a male. You can tell it's definitely a male northern right whale next to a man at Bunnabadir, just about to be processed. And these animals were called right whales because they were the right whale for the whalers to target. Huge thick layers of blubber, which produced a large amount of oil for their biomass. Absolutely massive animals. And look at the size of the baleen plates in the mouth of that whale. They were also highly valuable and sold on for use with corset making and things like that. So yeah, the next stint, you can see here, they only managed to find 2 North Atlantic right whales because, yeah, they'd massacred 92 in the previous stint. And again, look at the amount of sei whales, hardly any sei whales taken. So yeah, unfortunately, big damage had been done in that first stint in the whale populations that we could have seen here in Scottish waters. And then the third and final stint was after World War II. And yeah, by then the whale numbers had been completely decimated. This station was no longer viable, and you can see they only lasted 2 years. Whale kills were right down. Yeah, absolutely terrible. And just to prove the point, here in 1912, Bunnabadir was the top performing station, the most oil, and the joint most number of whales caught from the station. And then fast forward to 1951, worst performing station. So the damage was done. So you would think that after all that damage was done, that you know, we as humans would obviously pass on that knowledge and learn from each other. So here's, just as a reminder, here's a picture of one of the catcher boats that was used back off the Harris station in the early 1900s. And now fast forward to the 2020s. This is a picture kindly provided by Captain Paul Watson Foundation of a ship being used off of Iceland with 2 fin whales dead, dragged along. And you can see there's almost no difference. Similar boat, similar practice, and unfortunately similar mindset from the people that are involved. Yeah, not in times of a biodiversity crisis and a climate crisis, this is not really a good move by humankind. But sadly, whaling still goes on in the Atlantic, both in Iceland and over in Norway. And working over in this place is obviously, I do get a lot of stick from some people for going there and seemingly supporting going to these countries. But in my view, going over to these countries actually by supporting the wildlife watching community, the whale watching community, showing that these whales have some other value other than, you know, cutting them up for dinner and for oil, I think that's a much better way, and showing some of these local people that there is a better way and a more sustainable way, I think is much better. Also, one of our even closer neighbours in the Faroes, they're still doing the Grindr drap, so they pretty much pursue pilot whales and other dolphin species. They get a sighting and then they all take to their boats, herd the animals into bays close enough to killing beaches, and then men jump in, stick a horrible sharp implement into the blowhole, sever the spinal cord of the poor whales, and then haul them in, and then butcher them and divide up the meat. Pretty grim process. Yeah, I'm actually going to the Faroes in a few weeks' time, so I'm kind of dreading it, I must admit. And let's just hope that the next generation of Faroese see the end to this horrible practice. It's obviously, yeah, removing an entire family group of whales or dolphins is clearly not good for the longevity of this species. So next threat that I want to talk to you about is climate change. Now, obviously this is a huge one, but I haven't actually got that much experience with this. It's hard to prove what's going on with such a slowly evolving thing. This slide was provided to me by SMAS. SMAS have provided quite a few slides with actual scientific data. So this shows the number of deaths, number of strandings of different species split into warm water dolphin species such as the common dolphin and the striped dolphin, and the cold water species that we would have normally seen going back in time, Atlantic white-sided dolphins and white-beaked dolphins. And you can see the number of strandings of the warmer water species has actually increased quite significantly. From my own point of view, when I'm working from Catalogue, we see common dolphins almost most trips, loads of them, like hundreds of them. They're very abundant. They're seen all year round these days. Hebridean and Whale and Dolphin Trust, who have a research vessel, Silurian, they've been taking data for 20 years, and they never used to see common dolphins in winter, and now that's completely changed. Conversely, these white-beaked dolphins, last season was the first year that I've not seen them. So they seem to be getting sparser and sparser, probably moved further and further north as the water's warm and these common dolphins move in. So yeah, pretty yeah, I don't know. It's good for the common dolphins clearly, but obviously not good for some of our native species that we've had in our waters for longer. Now, entanglement. So yes, apologies for the photos that are going to follow. Some of them are pretty grim. Entanglement, SMAS tell me that 63% of deaths of our large whales are caused by entanglement. And just this week, a humpback whale, a young humpback whale, a young male, 3 or 4 years old, was washed up dead, entangled, just off of Ullapool. You may have also seen, if you're based in England, the whale that was entangled down near Falmouth, or Penzance, I think it was. I think the lifeboat managed to disentangle it, but this is a serious issue. So obviously the fishermen and the whales are all after the same thing. They're all after the fish, and so there's obviously a bit of there's room for each of the fishermen and the whales getting in each other's way, unfortunately. So this is a minke whale that was washed up dead, tangled in a ghost net. So it's not just active gear, it's also discarded gear or gear that's broken off that can cause these problems. This is actually the tail fin of Lulu, one of the West Coast community killer whales. This is after she'd got tangled in creel ropes. So the ropes obviously just stick onto the whale, and the whale obviously tries to thrash and get off and move, and obviously the tension on the whale ends up eroding their fin, cutting into their fin, and then eventually drowns the animal. So yeah, in keeping with the theme, this is a rare Sowerby's beaked whale. This one was found on the east coast of Scotland a couple of years ago, and you can see here the entanglement cut through the skin, through the blubber, and went right down to the muscles, and then stayed. The whale had it entangled so long that the blubber and the tissue all grew back over the rope. Very, very grim, and must have been incredibly painful for this poor animal. So my own personal experience, this is as part of volunteering for SMAS, so I ended up going out to look at this humpback whale to see if it was viable for necropsy or sampling. And unfortunately, this was another young humpback whale, 3 or 4 years old, washed up on the east coast, again, unfortunately, as a result of entanglement. And picture the scene. You're out on a tour boat and a minke whale in flat, calm conditions swims straight towards you, and you think, oh, brilliant. And you're talking to all your guests, absolutely superb. And then you notice something on the back of the whale. What do you say? And the thing is, there's nothing you can do either. There's no way of entangling such a powerful creature. I'm a firm believer that this whale actually swam right over to the boat because it needed help. And so on the subject of what you can do, cutting these animals off yourself is hopeless. So there is fortunately a BGMLR specialist team, large whale disentanglement team, and we called them out. And we also took lots of footage. We got GoPro footage. The whale was swimming that close to us. So we managed to get GoPro footage, which we hoped would help the BGMLR team work out which ropes they needed to cut in which order, and so that they could see how badly entangled this whale was. Sadly, though, by the time they mobilized and were able to get to us, unfortunately, we couldn't re-find the whale. So we don't actually know what happened to this whale, but judging by how badly it's entangled, I'm quite sure it became one of the terrible statistics. So the statistics at the moment are that 16 minke whales die every year from entanglement and 6 humpbacks each year. And that is the same equivalent of how many humpbacks we were losing during the whaling period at its peak. So it just shows you what a problem this is. Fortunately, a lot of the groups such as SMAS, Whale and Dolphin Conservation, Hebridean Whale and Dolphin Trust are working with the fishermen such as Scottish Creel Fishers in a project, Scottish Entanglement Alliance, to try and sort out this problem. Obviously, no one wants to see this happening, least of all the fishermen. Obviously, it's bad for their business, bad for their well-being. No one wants to see this happening. So chemical pollution is a bit harder to obviously see the results of, but one key note of a very notable issue that's arisen is with our West Coast community killer whales. So these are perhaps our most famous killer whales in Scottish waters. Their population was about 20, and slowly their numbers have dwindled. Hebridean Whale and Dolphin Trust took over monitoring them in the 90s, and ever since they took over, there's never ever been a calf seen with this group. They're much larger than other killer whales. They have a different diet. They actually feed solely on marine mammals. They've got a sloping eye patch, so they're very distinctive animals. in 2016, female Lulu was unfortunately found dead on Tiree, which meant that there were only 8 left. And since 2016, we don't know what's happened to the other 6, but we've only seen the 2 that are pictured here, John Coe on the right with the distinctive notch, and Aquarius. So John Coe is the whale that everyone wants to see. He's obviously very distinctable. So everyone really wants to see him. He's about 60 years old. He was first seen in 1980, and he was already an adult. Yeah, he's an absolutely amazing animal to see. So there's a lot in the press about these particular killer whales. They're basically suffering from a mixture of things. One of those is being inbred. There was a genetic study done a long time ago by Andy Foote, and he found they were incredibly inbred, and that is probably because they're quite an isolated group. As I said, they're different from other killer whales in Scottish waters, so they haven't got any other killer whales to breed with. This is a picture of Lulu, courtesy of SMAS on Tiree, where she was found. Luckily, she was in good enough condition for SMAS to necropsy her, and when they necropsied her, they found that her blubber levels contained PCB levels over 100 times the safe limit, which obviously is, yeah, seriously bad. She was condemned to being highly contaminated. So that, along with them being inbred, they checked her ovaries and found that although she was old enough to have given birth, she'd never been pregnant. So I think, as many people thought, that because there'd been no calves, everyone assumed they'd become infertile, and that seemed to hold true with the results of the necropsy. So as I say, it's only John Coe and Aquarius that have been seen since 2016. And obviously it doesn't take a genius. 2 adult male killer whales are not going to be able to keep a population going. So these guys are functionally extinct. So yeah, just a couple of shots of John Coe and Aquarius. So again, John Coe, you can see his eye patch really slopes back down and that distinctive notch. And Aquarius, similar eye patch, but no notch. And I was lucky enough, end of last year, to be involved with the filming of a documentary. I was driving the boat for a good friend of mine, George, and I worked with, he got Chris Beard here on the left. So George is making a feature-length documentary about the West Coast community. I'm not sure when it'll be out, but yeah, obviously, yeah, keep an eye on social media. It should be a very enlightening, if not sad, documentary. But yeah, he's put a lot of effort into it. All the right people are involved, all the big organizations, including SMAS. So should be a very interesting and educational watch. So yeah, hopefully we'll see John Coe and Aquarius again this year. But as I say, John Coe's already, well, probably over 60. No one's really sure how old Aquarius is. And this is the last time I saw them heading off, and you never quite know whether you're going to see them again. So always sad to wave them goodbye. Bye bye. So yeah, noise pollution. So this is increasing with our activity in the seas. So here in the Murray Firth, where I live, we've currently got a lot of wind farm development going on, lots of piling. You can see here in the background of these dolphins, one of the rigs that's used to put they put this onto the seabed using piles, and then they put the wind turbine base basically on top of that, and then the blades sit on that. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. There's, yeah, I don't know how many turbines going in at the moment, but we were there looking the other day, and there was probably about 20 boats all working out on the wind farm at the same time. So obviously that generates a considerable amount of noise. Obviously tour boats as well, we all have an impact. Any boat that goes out into the sea is obviously making noise. And as I'm sure you're all aware, marine mammals rely on sound to live. It's how they communicate. It's how they find their food. So it's important that we all learn to keep our distance and respect these animals, don't spend too much time near them, and behave ourselves. And that includes whale watching operators. So in Norway, it's very interesting. So I don't know if you can see, but in the middle of this melee of boats is one group of orcas. In the main in Norway, these orcas hang around fishing vessels. So they're used to being around vessels. They're used to the noise. And because they're feeding on vast shoals of billions of herring, not normally too much of a problem if you've got several boats just drifting around them. It doesn't seem to bother them. In this particular instance, however, it was ridiculous. There was 20 whale watching boats and film operators and whatever, all trying to get footage of one group of orcas, and yeah, that was completely inappropriate. As you can see, we were sat back watching it all, horrified. That was while I was working for Norwegian Orca Survey, documenting what was going on. While we're in Gairloch, we regularly see submarines. There's actually a submarine range just to the south of Gairloch where we work. Often gets closed because they're firing torpedoes. And later on in the year, there's a joint operation between lots of the NATO forces that goes on in the Minch. But yes, unfortunately, as the military have developed their sonar, this can have terrible consequences on our whale populations. So again, courtesy of SMAS, in 2018, there were over 100 beaked whales washed up dead, a significant number of whales, all over a very short period. This was considered to be an unusual mortality event. You can see from this graph, there were more cases in 1 month than in the whole of a previous decade. Absolutely shocking. Now, the scientists were very clever. They actually managed to use drift analysis and work out from where the carcasses had ended up on the shore. They were able to work out roughly like an area where they thought this event may have occurred that killed all these whales. What actually happens is the loud noise from the sonar actually frightens the whales, and they surface too quickly, and they effectively end up with a bends like we would if we were diving and came up too quick. So yes, unfortunately, this was the largest mortality event, possibly seriously affecting the population levels of these beaked whales. And of course, these beaked whales generally live offshore in very deep areas, so they're very, they're unrecorded. Basically, there's not much known about them. But yeah, a lot of what we know is from the strandings. So yeah, unfortunately, a very, very serious event. A couple of years later, there were another group of beaked whales that actually came into a few of the west coast lochs near Glasgow. I went over there. This is a northern bottlenose whale that was actually, the irony of it was incredible. They were actually right outside Fastlane, which is where a lot of our nuclear submarines are based, just in the Clyde. So yeah, here we had these beautiful beaked whales, literally right outside a nuclear submarine base, with maximum security, breaching, spy hopping, doing all sorts. Lots of people obviously went out to watch them from shore and safely from boats. So yeah, there was all sorts going on. But unfortunately, a lot of these whales stranded and died. Yeah, it was pretty sad. We don't know what actually had happened to them to drive them into the loch in the first place, and we'll never know. Unfortunately, a lot of the bodies, when they were recovered, were too far decomposed for SMAS to be able to work it out. But yeah, it was a tragedy. I mean, yeah, a lot of us managed to go there, and yeah, you grow to love these whales when you're watching them for so long, and it was incredibly sad to see their demise. So marine litter obviously is quite a well-known thing. Friends of mine make a big effort to pick up litter. I generally do beach cleans with my faithful assistant, Riley. As you can see, he absolutely loved it. This was while we were in Cork Bay over on Ireland. We were going around looking for whales, and yeah, there was just beer cans and rubbish everywhere. So I deployed Riley to help me out, so we can all do our bit. And unfortunately, marine litter has big consequences on our marine wildlife. This seal, as you can see, this is a seal that was resident in Gairloch Harbour for a while, and you can clearly see the signs that she's had something wrapped around her neck, constricting her neck. Now, these photos are absolutely grim. This is another set of photos from SMAS of a sperm whale that died on Harris on Luscantire Beach. So absolutely beautiful surroundings, possibly the most beautiful beach in Scotland. And then you've got this absolute grim sight of a sperm whale dead, full of marine litter. Now, I just have to clarify that this whale didn't actually die from what it had in its stomach, but obviously what it had in its stomach clearly wasn't helping it. So yeah, this is as the guys had cut the stomach open, you can see the rope inside the stomach, balls and balls of it. So this is all of the contents that they found within one sperm whale. Unbelievable. So yeah, very, very sad. This it's even, it's taken in rope, and you can see the top right, there's even a big chunk of fishing net that it swallowed. Clearly not a good thing. So enough of the doom and gloom. What are the things that we can actually do to help things? So as I've already mentioned, we've got a lovely Springer Spaniel, Riley, and he's demonstrating here that what we can do is pick up rubbish, take it away with us. Don't, if you see it, bin it, take it away. Don't just leave it. To obviously, especially with plastic, it will decompose, get into the food web, and then that ultimately affects us as well. So you can do beach cleans when you go around, pick up rubbish. There's lots of organisations that have set up some fantastic beach cleans. So yeah, get involved. You can organise them yourself. This was a beach clean I organised in Berghead for lots of school kids that came out. This was actually good fun, gets everyone out, and obviously does a world of good. You can also dress up in a dolphin costume that's 3 sizes too small for you, and stand up and be counted and protest stupid proposals that are made in the Moray Firth. So I actually really began to love these dolphins pretty much as soon as I met them. So when there was an awful proposal for ship-to-ship oil transfers in the Moray Firth, literally in the middle of the special area of conservation designated for the bottlenose dolphins, I wanted to have my voice heard. So always make sure you make your voice heard. If you really care for something, make sure you do everything you can to protect it. Say what you think. So as I say, this proposal was in the heart of the special area of conservation for the bottlenose dolphins. Luckily for us, Chanonry Point is nearby, and tourists after tourists, local after local, go down there and see these dolphins. And so thousands of people have fallen in love with these dolphins and going there, and were absolutely horrified by this proposal. And People Power basically kicked that proposal out. Seeing these dolphins up so close and personal makes you connect to them, makes you care about them, and then makes you want to put on a dolphin suit that's 3 sizes too small. Go and even meet your MP. I mean, who would want to do that? Yeah, so here I am on the right talking to my MP, and on the left, famous author Ian Rankin. He was also part of the protest, and met up with MSPs, and yeah, basically we managed to we had a bit of fun, as you can see, but we also, in all sincerity, managed to kick this proposal into touch. So yeah, always make sure you speak up for what you believe in and care about. You can also join organisations such as Bidi Malar. This is my good friend Kath and another volunteer with a pilot whale that had live stranded just outside Inverness. An amazing organisation doing great things, helping live animals that have stranded. One good news story with strandings is this particular animal. This is Spurtle. You can see she's got a funny white patch on her. That's because she's stranded. She got sunburn, and this is where her skin's healed. And a couple of years later, she gave birth to a baby. So all the effort made by all those BGMLR volunteers was well worth it, continuing on the bottlenose dolphin population. Yeah, and pass on your stories. I'm fortunate. I work on a boat, so I'm able to obviously, connect people to whales and dolphins. But each one of you, if you're out and about and you see whales and dolphins, you can easily, collar the next person who's just looking at the birds or whatever, talk to them, pass on your information. Hopefully they'll also fall in love with watching whales and dolphins. They're much more interesting than birds. I shouldn't be saying that, should I? Maybe I'm all right with the Mammal Society. But anyway, yeah, just make sure you do your bit. Just you can join other organisations and do watches, which all help promote lovely whales and dolphins. So one of the areas that we go to on the boat is actually an MPA for these lovely animals, Risso's dolphins. So we regularly go out to the MPA area and try and find the Rissos. As you can see, they have calves there, so it's an MPA because the dolphins breed there. Should we be jumping for joy? How corny was that? Should we be jumping for joy that there's an MPA protecting them? Well, unfortunately, one of the problems with MPAs is they're not really enforced. They're not policed. As you can see from this bit of research, 33,000 hours of bottom trawling within MPAs. So I have to say, I'm not a big fan of these MPAs when they're not actually policed properly. There's no enforcement. Someone does something wrong in there, nothing happens. So I don't know, what's the point? Recently, these areas here shown of this is just two examples. These areas have been designated as what are called IMMAs, and I like the idea. IMMA is important marine mammal area. I like the idea, but what's the point in having all these lovely paper parks if no one's going to actually enforce things? So I hope that the government actually get off their butts and start putting in something to enforce the regulations in order to actually make these areas worthwhile having. So one thing you can also do is obviously contact your MPs, contact your MSPs if you're in Scotland, and tell them, that you want to see something actually happening within these areas. Yeah, and you can tell stories. As I say, you can talk to people. So this is George on the right, the guy making the documentary about John Cohen Aquarius. I first met him in Norway, and I just had a conversation with him about John Cohen Aquarius and what was going on, knowing he was a filmmaker, and he couldn't believe that no one had filmed them. And just purely out of that conversation over breakfast, George is making a feature-length documentary about them, which will hopefully, spread the word about their story and perhaps even stop bad things happening elsewhere to other killer whale populations, even though it's too late for the West Coast community. So always worth opening your mouth, and yeah, you never know how your conversation will change things. So yeah, citizen science and social media. Social media gets a bad press. Lots of people moan and groan about social media, but it can be used. It can be used very positively. So I'm currently up here looking for killer whales, and we use social media. We use Facebook and WhatsApp groups to basically help each other out to know where the whales are. That then helps other people go and see them. It helps people that have never seen them before see them. And again helps them connect with the whales, hopefully fall in love with them, and then be happy enough to then do something to protect them. You can also join various citizen science programs. So as I mentioned at the start, one of the key things that got me where I am today was the Shore Watch program, and I can't recommend that enough. But there are other programs elsewhere around the UK. There's events such as Orca Watch that Sea Watch run. As Fiona said at the start, you've got the events that are going on with the Mammal Society up here. Make sure you attend all these things. They're all worthwhile, and it all helps these incredible animals. And one final plug, HWDT, Hebridean Whale and Dolphin Trust, they've got a fantastic app called Whale Track, which I'm a real believer in. I use it all the time when I'm out. to log my sightings. So log your sightings. If it's not with Whale Track, yeah, use someone's app or give your data to Sea Watch on paper, whatever it is. Make sure you log your sightings, because it's all helpful and useful data for these organisations to help protect the animals. Even if you can't be bothered to log your sightings and you're more of a photographer, you can take pictures of animals' dorsal fins and submit them to the relevant people. So if you ever get killer whales, please do let me know. It might even end up in the Scottish Killer Whale Catalogue. Also whales, there's various apps. There's Lindsay's Scottish Humpback Whale ID Catalogue. We're always up for getting photo ID images of animals just to see how well they're doing. So finally, how are the whale numbers looking? So this isn't based on much science. This is based on what I've seen. So a little bit of science. This is from SMAS. This is showing you the number of strandings of large baleen whales. And as you can see, in 1992, there were none. And now, obviously, this was done in 2022, so they hadn't got a complete suite of data. But look at the number in 2021. Huge increase, and overall a massive increase in strandings of these large whales. And that is presumably because there are more whales in our waters. So we regularly see minke whales. Minke whales are the most common whale in Scottish waters. Come very close, very entertaining for our guests. And as the years have gone by, we're seeing more and more feeding activity. Here's a minke whale lunge feeding through a shoal of sprat and herring. And we're seeing this longer and longer each season. Absolutely incredible to see. And hopefully it's an indication of a bit of a recovery of these small fish species. Overfishing in the past, that's another threat, but I didn't go on about it. Overfishing has obviously ruined the fish stocks in our waters. I was lucky enough to be on a boat a couple of months ago. We were surveying off of Gairloch, and we found herring spawn. So it's, yeah, everything's looking pretty good on the side of the fish. So hopefully this season we're going to have another good season when those fish hatch and the whales all come in to feed on them. So a few more shots of the minke whales feeding. Very cool thing to see. Beautiful animals. Again, more fish scattering all over the place. You can see all the orcs around them feeding on the same thing. Really cool to see. And here's a shot of the actual fish in the water. You can see a couple floating on the surface. This was after a feeding strike by a minke whale, and I netted the fish. This is some of the fish, and I gave them to one of the fisheries biologists, and yeah, he confirmed they were juvenile herring and sprat. So presumably herring that had spawned, well, herring from spawning herring just off of Gairloch. So we've been getting a bit more good news. RSPB announced this, the industrial sand eel trawling around the UK has been banned. So that's obviously going to have a real positive impact for our seabirds, but also for our whales and dolphins. And we are getting better at monitoring our fish stocks, and hopefully the overfishing is going to stop. So on to the big boys and girls. Obviously, it's the humpback whale. And over the years, we've been seeing considerably more and more humpback whales and fin whales from our boat. This is a whale called Nick, named after our founder at Hebridean Whale Cruises. And we've seen this whale for 4 years in a row now. And it seems that this whale is being joined by other humpbacks as the years are going by. So this is a quick screenshot. It's not very scientific, but this is a screenshot of all sightings made on Whale Track of humpback whales and fin whales. So as you can see, only 11 sightings in 2019 in that whole area. In the same area, a few years later after COVID, over 80 sightings. And then just last year, well over 100 sightings. And a lot of the sightings seem to be moving further south, so towards Gairloch, off of the Summer Isles. And it was absolutely incredible to see these whales last year. So this is Nick again feeding. He was actually feeding very close to us. Here's a quick video clip of Nick having a good feed.
Wow. So could you see his mouth was bulging, mouth full of water. So what it's going to do now is push all that water out through the sides of its mouth via the baleen plate. Oh my God. Wow. Yeah, so it filters the fish out of the water using the baleen that's in its on its upper jaw. Where's it going to come out? What? Oh my God. Holy moly. Wow, that is pretty cool.
So as you can see, Nick was not very shy of the boat on that occasion. I think the food had sort of drifted over towards us, and the kittiwakes were having a good feed as well. But yeah, over the years we're seeing more and more whales feeding, which is a real positive sign. So here's Nick on the right, and another whale called Vader, and I'd stopped the boat, and they actually swam right under us and surfaced right next to us. They're really checking us out. It was yeah, amazing. You could literally see him in the clear water going under us with the huge white pectoral fins. Really incredible. So I don't know if you can make it out on this slide what everyone's looking at. This is actually whale poo. And I've been lucky enough to work in the Falklands on a research project where we actually collect whale poo from sei whales. But this was the first time that I'd actually seen whale poo in Scottish waters. Whale poo is obviously, well, maybe not obviously, it basically fertilizes the water surface, which means that phytoplankton, zooplankton have something to feed on, and it basically kickstarts the whole feeding process. And the fish can obviously feed on that, and the birds and the seals and the whales and the dolphins. So actually seeing the whales pooing in our waters is like, it was I was so excited. Yeah, I don't know what the passengers thought of that, but yeah, it was amazing to see. So yeah, really positive signs. Now this whale was a whale that was called Scream, and I don't know if you can make it, it's a bit dark actually. You can see sort of some orange in the water. This whale was feeding near Skye, and it was feeding on what looked to be krill. Unfortunately, didn't manage to get any samples of what it was, but you can see when the whale was going underneath whatever it was, coming up, and these little animals were jumping out. Something I'd never ever seen before. I've got a quick video clip to show you, so you'll see what I mean. It's really interesting to watch.
Wow. Wow. It's crazy, isn't it? How the colour of it. Absolutely amazing.
So never seen anything like that before, but yeah, hopefully this is something that we'll be seeing a lot more of, different food sources for these huge whales. And yeah, it's not just the humpbacks that seem to be increasing. We're seeing a lot more fin whales. We're even seeing fin whales on our shorter trips, something I've never even thought was possible. So yeah, again, seemed like a much larger food source and much closer to land, much closer to the mainland. So yeah, all positive signs. You see the size of this animal. That's obviously only 2/3 of the animal. There's another third of it behind the dorsal fin. They're huge, great things. Here's some common dolphins just for scale. The common dolphins seem to like bow riding and surfing on the large fin whales. And at one point we saw a fin whale with about, well, we estimated 300 common dolphins. Another boat that had been nearby reckoned more like 500. So yeah, just yeah, again, more positive signs. You know, beautiful marbling on the head of the fin whales. And yeah, just a real joy to see the second largest animal on the planet at home in our waters. Fantastic. So yeah, we're going to move away now for the very last bit from Scotland. We're going to just have a look at the large whales in Norway. So yeah, obviously same animal. These animals we're watching feeding on herring when we're in Norway. So they're generally lunge feeding, so coming up from below on a huge, like you're literally talking billions of herring, like we saw in that video at the start. And you can see that the herring will actually like scatter and jump out just before the humpbacks hit the surface. And it's absolutely incredible to see. Huge mouths coming out of the water, trying to swallow as many herring as possible. And back in 2019, as I say, I've been going since 2017. Back in 2017, I think we only saw 2 or 3 humpbacks. And then in the same area, 2019, we saw this group of humpbacks, and I thought that was amazing, 30 humpbacks. And then in 2022, there were multiple big groups, couple of groups of 30, but there was this one group which was 65, 70. Someone took a drone photo and counted the actual bodies, and yeah, I think it was 65 to 70 animals. Absolutely incredible. So again, in Norway, same story, many more whales, many more whales. Here's a drone clip from that huge group. Yeah, really incredible to see. Very heartwarming to see that despite all the problems that we've dished out to these poor animals, they seem to be doing pretty well. So my last trip up to Norway when I was working there, this was literally, I think, my second last trip out to sea. I'm itching to get back out and yeah, watch what happens with this humpback. It spent about 20 minutes around us doing this.
Here he comes, coming up. Wow. Oh my God. Wow. Wow. Steffi, smile. Steffi, look at me. Wow, that's incredible.
Now I can die.
Please don't.
Absolutely incredible to be around these very intelligent animals, and yeah, you have to wonder why it was coming up to us. This particular whale, you could maybe see it had a distinctive white patch on the side of its head, and this particular whale kept on coming up to different boats literally the whole season. Yeah, and you have to wonder why. Maybe it had a message for us, who knows. So I'm just going to end with this is the sound of a humpback whale and some orcas chatting underwater, recorded on a hydrophone. So yeah, maybe have a think about what they're trying to say to us. And that's me. Thank you very much. And a big thanks to SMAS and Captain Paul Watson Foundation for some of the slides, some of the pictures that they loaned me to show you. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Steve. That was so interesting. And you've got so much amazing footage. I think everybody's quite jealous. We've got a couple of questions in the Q&A. If anyone else has got any more questions, do pop them in. But our first question is, do you know of any examples of successful conservation methods for cetaceans around the world?
Oh, blimey. God, talk about being put on the spot. Well, one of the things actually, one of the things I didn't have enough time to fit everything that I wanted to say in. One of the things I did actually want to talk about was actually the fishing. So going up to Norway, Norway gets a bad press for whaling, obviously, deservedly so. But what we don't hear is how well they've managed their fishing stocks. So when you go over to Norway, when you're trying to work out where the orcas are going to turn up and the humpbacks are going to turn up, you actually spend a lot of time. Well, I do anyway, because I'm a sad geek, but I spend a lot of time looking at there's a herring fishing website, and on that you can actually see where each catch is made, how many fish, what size they are. There's so many details available, which you just don't get that in the UK. And every year they do a huge survey, they allocate a quota, and the Norwegians herring actually collapsed completely, and in the 70s they basically stopped fishing, which is something we should have done when the same thing happened to us, but we carried on and wiped the herring out because we're stupid. But the Norwegians didn't. They stopped the fishing. They did actually do something horrendous and killed loads of the orcas, which obviously don't commend. But because they stopped the fishing, since then they actually have been very, very careful with how they manage it. And they allocate only 10% of they do this massive survey and work out how many fish there are in the population, and then only allocate 10% to be caught by the fishermen. And each year, obviously, then the population's able to grow and develop. And okay, although that's not directly a measure for increasing population of cetaceans, that is the end result. That is what's happened. With the herring actually recovering, the orca populations have grown, the humpback whale populations have grown, and yeah, it's been a positive. So I can only hope. As I said to you, I was part of a group of people who went out to look for this herring spawning off of Gairloch, and our seas, who the results were sent to, they're lobbying the Scottish government to protect this area from dredging, and it still hasn't been done. That area where the herring are actually returning to could easily be dredged tomorrow, no problem at all, and ruined forever, setting that population back, which would then subsequently set back our cetacean. So yeah, it's that's my, I would say that's the most positive thing I can think. Seeing the recovery of the whales in Norway has been incredible.
Brilliant. And I think that links quite nicely to another question we've got, which is, what can we pressure governments to do apart from enforcing and policing those marine protected areas? What else can we ask our governments to do?
Yeah, well, yeah, just pretty much answer that with the fishing. Yeah, and things like controlling the waste. I mean, the PCBs that have affected the killer whales, they were banned years ago, but they're still getting into the environment. You know, they should be, someone, the government would be the only people to do it, should be getting hold of those chemicals and somehow, you know, putting them in a sealed environment where they can't actually get out into our rivers. But yeah, it's still happening.
And then potentially a slightly more positive question. So if people want to record their sightings, does the Whale Track app apply around England and Wales as well? Or is there somewhere better for people down south to record?
I think the Whale Track app is only for Scotland, I think. But Sea-Watch did have an app, the Sea Watcher app. I don't know if they still use that. But even without the app, you can still give your sightings. Sea-Watch I think they have the largest database out of everyone, so you can still log your sightings via their website.
Brilliant, thank you. I think that is all of our questions. So thank you very much for joining us today. We will be popping this recording up on YouTube later in the week so other people can access it as well. But it just leaves me to say a big thank you to Steve and thank you to everyone for attending.
Thanks very much.
Brilliant.